Hello again, everyone. My name is Palm, or Palmtacular, if you don't know me, and I am a VTuber, but I am also a law student. And welcome back. I said that I'd make another YouTube video, but I didn't think it'd be so soon. That being said, I've been seeing a lot of information being shared online about YouTube's new age verification policies, and I wanted to take a moment to talk about what's going on and why I think it's pretty alarming. Um, but first, I wanted to say hello. I am still really new to YouTube and making YouTube videos, and this is again super impromptu 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on July 30th. So, um, these are just kind of my rambling thoughts on what's going on. Um, that being said, YouTube has recently announced on Tuesday, so yesterday, that they're going to use AI or artificial intelligence to start to estimate ages of users in the US in order to block content from users that are minors or even teenagers. In YouTube's own article themselves, posted by James Besser, who's the director of product management for YouTube Youth, they want to extend their protections to teens and preteen accounts more. So he says that they'll begin to roll out machine learning to a small set of users in the US to estimate their age, and so that teens are treated as teens and adults as adults. And they also are saying that they're going to closely monitor it before they roll it out more widely. And the technology is meant to work to infer users' age and use that signal, regardless of the birthday in the account, to deliver age-appropriate product experiences and protections. That being said, if a user is identified as under 18, they'll disable personalized advertising, turn on things like digital well-being tools, which isn't explained, but I'm assuming means things like no auto scroll or autoplay features, things like that. And then they're also going to be adding safeguards to recommendations, including limiting repetitive views of some kinds of content. They don't really outline what that means, which is kind of confusing, because repetitive views of what kind of content that could extend to things like queer content that we're seeing being limited for children in states like Florida that pass things called what we like to call in the legal sphere don't say gay bills. That being said, they also said that if the system incorrectly estimates users to be under 18, you can have the option to verify that you're 18 and over using a credit card or a government ID. And then users who have been inferred or verified as over 18 to view age-restricted content will be allowed to view age-restricted content that may be inappropriate for younger users. Now, YouTube has not defined what is inappropriate to younger users, which could extend to things like videos about being queer, or history videos, or videos about video games, for example. And while I think it's really important to separate out adult spaces and teen spaces and kid spaces, I just don't think that this is quite the way, as Australia already implemented this age verification system. And when it was introduced in Australia, it didn't work great. This Guardian article, though I'm kind of half and half about the Guardian, I don't really totally trust them. This Guardian article talks about how essentially the process to detect if someone is under the age of 18 through facial age estimation technology, which is to say technology that scans your face to see if you're over 18, didn't really work, and there are incorrect results for both children and adults. And I can say anecdotally that I got recently mistaken for 14. I'm 23. So I would be likely targeted by this kind of technology, depending on how much sleep I've gotten, to be under the age of 18 and not be allowed to view some of my content. It's also troublesome that I don't know what kind of content is going to be covered by this ban. So it's not great overall. That being said, there are actual solutions that are helpful for parents. I think that having safeguards, like the safeguards that were introduced in the Kids Online Safety Act in the United States, are actually quite helpful to allow parents access to their minor children's accounts. Um, additionally, additionally, I think that there are other options that parents and the social media companies can use to safeguard individuals. First, I think YouTube should just remove a lot of the inappropriate content that's on YouTube. Now, I'm not saying to remove stuff like video games or maybe stuff with swearing. That's just silly to remove. What I'm saying is that I just don't think that content that's like explicit or pornographic in nature should be on YouTube. I'm talking specifically about the I don't know if I'm allowed to say the word hentai, but the hentai, I've said it now, huh? The hentai comics that are on YouTube currently as we speak about Pomni and Jax from the Amazing Digital Circus. That's completely inappropriate. Additionally, on YouTube, there have been videos of naked individuals doing things like cleaning, which is essentially softcore pornography. I don't think those videos have a place on YouTube, to be honest, if YouTube wants to maintain a more general, approachable platform. That being said, there are options for parents as well that don't involve YouTube having to scan our faces or scan our IDs, which I don't totally trust them to keep them fully safe. I'm not saying that YouTube can't, I'm just saying that the track record for companies keeping our data safe isn't great, and data leaks happen. And I'd rather not have my government ID leaked and risk a heap of a bunch of issues from that. That being said, there's a lot of options for parents. I mean, the first option is if you have kids that are, minors, you don't have to allow them onto social media. I know with things like YouTube, it's a little bit different since there is content based for children on the platform. So make sure that your kids have a child account. Easier said than done. I know that kids, you can implement softwares and safeguards on their um, devices, but that doesn't mean that they can't see it elsewhere. I totally get that. But I think this is where parents need to have open and honest conversations with their kids about what content could potentially be on the internet, what's age appropriate, and what parents are comfortable having conversations about. I think, though I'm not a parent, with the parents that I've spoken to, including my own, sometimes parenting means having tough conversations with your kids. And on the internet, that means having tough conversations about what's appropriate, what is age appropriate for kids. That being said, there are some technological solutions as well, including Wi Fi router bans, which essentially, through your internet service provider, you can ban certain platforms, apps, or websites. So if you don't want your kids accessing YouTube freely without your permission, you can implement those. And I believe that some internet service providers allow parents to put in passwords to access certain websites to kind of go around these parental locks. Additionally, there's something called a device-based age verification system, or API. What this does, and I am not a coder at all, okay? I have coded maybe 2 lines of code on Tumblr when I was 14 to have a sparkle cursor on my blog. So I'm not gonna pretend that I know about coding. But what I will say is the way I understand device based age verification tokens to work is essentially that these tokens, or these what they call application programming interface API, um, are implemented onto a user's device within the operating system itself. So for iPhone, which is what I'm familiar with, it goes through the iOS, right? Essentially, what this does is the user verifies their age once through the device's operating system, and then the age is stored within the user's device within their operating system, right? Users would then verify their age at the time of the device's activation. So, like when you get a brand new shiny phone, you put in your age, and then the device would share that age with websites or applications or application stores or online services that would require age verification. This gives the benefit that users don't have to put in their age multiple times, nor would users have to put in like uh, essentially like any kind of government ID or anything like that when it's unnecessary for the website. And it safeguards users' data just a little bit more than having to turn over your data multiple times to a whole bunch of websites. This also is a lot easier for the websites themselves because, again, they aren't required to safeguard user data, which can be rather costly. And it's why the hub has pulled out of 17 states because they themselves stated that they cannot protect user data when they're gathering ID verification. Now, there is something called the Digital Age Assurance Act in the United States. I haven't read through it mostly. Um, so, I will say that I don't know much about it, but um, device based APIs are actually a really good solution to issues that the hub was having too, because this allows for users to set it up when they're setting up their profiles, and then they don't have to essentially collect like sensitive government information, nor do the websites then have to ping that that information is correct and valid with the government, which creates a whole slew of other issues, especially for stuff like adult entertainment stuff, where if things like let's say queer topics are separated from not queer topics, if you catch my drift, essentially the government will get a list of people that are trying to access the queer website and not trying to access the not queer website or the straight website, if that makes sense. Um, which can be really, really, really dangerous. And it's a huge issue. We've already seen this issue come to fruition because of the T app. For those of you that don't know, the T app is essentially an app where women were going on there. They would have to identify themselves as women through the government ID. And what they would do is they would go on to talk about kind of harassment or abuses that they faced from men in a community that was meant to be safe. However, purported hackers from 4chan went onto the T app and leaked all of the information from the people on the app. That's super, super dangerous. It's gross from the hackers, but it shows that there is a valid vulnerability when apps or websites are collecting government IDs. It's unsafe and it's not great. Um, so I wanted to get on here just to talk about the device-based API alternative and let you guys know that while this change is coming to some accounts, it isn't coming to all accounts. However, we should make our voices heard and reach out to YouTube to talk about potential other solutions. Additionally, reaching out to legislators is a really great solution to talk about what's happening. I also want to let you know that the Federal Trade Commission has just published, or rather finished, notice and comment period on a potential rulemaking or decision on technological censorship to find out what's being censored online by these big tech companies like YouTube and what the FTC can do to curb this censorship. Because in the United States, this kind of censorship of otherwise valid and protected First Amendment topics essentially acts as censorship of our First Amendment right to freedom of speech, which is impermissible by the business. So we'll see how that works. Other than that, thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry, my voice is tending to go out now because I've been yapping too much. But again, if you have any questions, leave them down below. I really appreciate getting everyone's questions. Make sure that you're taking care of yourselves too. And thank you for listening to me ramble about device-based age verification tokens. I'm a big fan. We'll see how this all pans out. But in the interim, take care of yourselves. Do some self-care. Take a hot shower. And try to do something fun. I'll start by sharing something fun I did today is I got a pumpkin spice latte. I know it's July, but it was really tasty and I felt really happy and in the mood for autumn at that point. So, yeah, thanks for watching and I will see you all soon. Hopefully not tomorrow though. Bye bye!